Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Politically Provoked, an interactive podcast where we host debates, panels, and interviews. If this is your first time joining us, please like, share, subscribe, follow. We are primarily on YouTube, but you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and BitChute. All the information is in the banner below, or you can just search Politically Provoked and we should pop right up. Politically Provoked is a neutral ground where people from across the political spectrum can either duke it out in a debate or just have a casual discussion in one of our panels. Either way, we try to represent both left and right-wing views on every episode. I'm your left-wing host, Brittany, and this is your right-wing host, Todd. How are you, Todd?
Doing great, Britt. How you doing tonight?
Doing good. No delay.
No delay.
No delay. All right. Yeah, so we have another interview for you guys. The purpose of them is to allow those who have been on the show or plan to be on the show, whether it's for a debate or a panel, it gives us as well as the audience a better idea of where people stand on various issues. And then after that, we'll just start putting them in our debaters library. We have a left-wing library and a right-wing library and a panelist library. So you guys can go through them, see if anybody sparks your interest, and then set debates up based on that. And if you are interested in doing a debate and would like to set up an interview, you can email us at politicallyprovoked@gmail.com. So tonight we have an interview with a nihilist. Let's bring him on. How are you?
Hello, I am good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So if you want to give a quick introduction, tell people a little bit about yourself, where you lie on the political spectrum, and maybe where people can find you.
All right, so you can find me at YouTube. Just search up a nihilist. I should be there somewhere around the top options. I consider myself far left, but that label doesn't really give my full position because I think the spectrum of left and right is kind of misdefined in American and in general broader politics. I come from sort of the T.J. Kirk anti-identity politics tradition of leftism, and I think stuff like ideologies like neo-feminism and black nationalism are actually just right-wing forms of right-wing tribalism concealed by the fact they happen to be supporting minorities at the moment. I think things like men's rights, free expression, opposition to identitarianism have always been left-wing, and that shouldn't change just because some people are in support of minorities over people who happen to be the majority at the time. My goal in my channel is to essentially prevent people from being sucked into the alt-right pipeline by introducing egalitarian and economic and social ideas to disaffected liberals. And so in that sense, I am very far left, very egalitarian. I am, however, very ableist. I have to be since I deal with so many conservatives.
Okay. All right. What do you mean you deal with so many conservatives?
I am ableist.
Okay. All right. So were you a Bernie supporter then?
Affirmative.
Affirmative. Okay. All right. What would you say your top 3 voting issues are?
Okay, so the issues that I want to achieve are nothing like what's possible, like not achievable right now. Whoever campaigns on banning circumcision has my vote. I don't care what else they believe, like even if they think circumcision is just like some sort of sign of submission to the Jews or whatever. I don't care. I just want to ban circumcision. But when it comes to electoral politics right now and what we can get done now, I think electoral strategy comes first. Populism is the way of the future. I mean, we see it with Trump's movement and we see it with Bernie's movement, Bernie and Trump being the most popular members of their parties, respectively. And so we should campaign on popular issues and frame Republicans as corrupt, which shouldn't be too hard since they are. So my top 3 issues, or actually I have 4. So election reform. So if you win that, you win everything, because if you win election reform, then you can win more elections and do more policies that you want. So that means reforming campaign finance, getting rid of the electoral college, which is basically just affirmative action for rural and uneducated white people. And you know what? I'd be down with some left-wing voter suppression. Like if we had some sort of test that made sure all voters had some sort of baseline knowledge in politics, or if they had like an IQ over like 90, I don't know. It seems like left-wingers would come out on top there. Weed legalization, again, a very popular policy. And, you know, it's only a matter of time before that happens. So why not do it now and, you know, get the public in our favor? UBI. I mean, I actually don't even particularly support UBI. Like, I like the idea, but I don't know that it's going to work specifically. It's just a negative income tax with a leaky bucket. But people tend to like free money, which is why I support it as a policy position, which is, just to get more votes. And along that line, I'm also anti-war because obviously people don't like dying. So those are my top 4 issues to pursue.
Okay. So if you were to debate somebody, which topics would interest you the most to debate and which topics would interest you the least?
Okay, so I feel like I bring in I'm trying to bring in sort of a more unique voice, which is why I want to, tackle topics that people don't usually talk about. So things I would like to talk about that other people wouldn't be able to cover might be stuff like eugenics and anti-natalism. I'm in support of reasonable eugenics, and I am not in support of just having however many kids you want. And if you want, you could throw me in as anti-life in an abortion debate, so I can be like a wild card third guy. Genital integrity, like circumcision, I'd
Oh, you're cutting out when you're muted.
yeah. Where did I leave off?
I think you were talking about how you don't want you're anti-circumcision.
Right. Okay. So after that, I would be willing to go anti-democracy and anti-populism. I know I just said that I support populism as an electoral strategy, but I also think it's very anti-intellectual, and we should probably move away from that if we can. So there's that conflicting message there. I think men's rights versus feminism. I think I could make a compelling case for men's rights over feminism broadly from a leftist point of view. I mean, I think it's very fun watching right-wingers dunk on pop feminists and all that, but they don't seem to have any good ideas of their own. So I would try to provide that myself.
Can you maybe clarify some of your positions on that exactly? Like, in some of these actually, yeah, the men's right versus feminism. Like, what would be your position on that?
Oh, well, so I would be taking things from what people might call an intersectional masculist point of view, which is that I don't reject intersectionality. I don't reject LGBT rights. I don't, I'm very pro-egalitarian, but I also reject the idea that feminism's claim that women are disadvantaged compared to men is true. So I think men are generally disadvantaged compared to women. And I also think the main difference when I might call myself a men's right activist is I'm trying to filter out all the cringy bullshit stuff from feminism to try to reach a more pure, a better egalitarian way of thinking that doesn't abandon the principles of what feminism is supposed to stand for, the way a lot of right-wing anti-feminists do.
So you're not a feminist then?
So, I mean, in the broad sense that I want equality between the sexes, then I guess I am a feminist. Mm-hmm. But, feminism as the movement so far, like right now, I think it perpetuates toxic masculinity, the stuff that they pretend or they claim or try to be combating. I think the way they go about it is bad and is counterproductive, which is why I don't call myself a feminist in the modern sense.
And you said, before you continue on some of these positions, you said anti-democracy. You want to elaborate on that a bit too?
Oh, yeah. So anti-democracy, I mean, this is a purely conceptual argument, not purely actually, just mostly conceptual argument that democracy doesn't seem to actually get good outcomes. Obviously, we have a plutocracy now and a kakistocracy where like the most corrupt people rise to the top. So that's even worse. But conceptually, I think democracy is just my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. I think, some meritocratic way of reducing the amount of people who vote to as little as possible while retaining that sort of democratic think in terms of the wider group and what's good for all of us sort of mentality. I think there's a balance point to be struck there with democracy. But first you have to achieve democracy and then whittle it down from there.
Okay. All right. So if you want to keep going on some of the topics you'd be interested in debating.
Oh yeah. So other topics I'd be willing to debate are just regular stuff, generally from a libertarian left perspective. Socialism, I'm for workplace democracy. Cancel culture, I'm against. Religion, I'm generally against. LGBT issues, I'm generally for. And climate change, well, it exists and it's man-made. So any
Okay.
other stuff I could probably, I could probably do it too.
And on the cultural issues, because I mean, you said something in the beginning. What was it? It was something about where with minorities, like we do. Fuck, I don't remember exactly how you worded it, but it was something about how. Todd, do you remember what he said exactly? I should wrote that part down.
Nope, I didn't.
Okay, well, I won't be able to ask that.
I mean, you want me to repeat it?
Well, it was just something in the very beginning that you mentioned that it was a criticism of the left, that the left does something with minorities. You were for. Oh, fuck. I don't remember what it was. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's basically the idea that the left is lenient on people who I would classify as right-wing tribalists because they happen to be in support of minorities.
Okay, that's what it was. Thank you. All right, yeah. Okay, so like for other cultural issues, I mean, is that something that you'd be interested in talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Debating? Okay.
Yeah,
all right. All right. So okay, so I think let me see what else we have here. And I'm guessing you are for single payer.
Yes.
Okay. And all right, I think that's good for me, Todd.
Okay, I got 5 normal questions, but I'm going to ask you some philosophical questions too, because it sounds like that's what you're into. So here's my 5 softball questions I normally ask everybody. Do you favor nationalism or globalism?
Globalism. Jewish cabals keep on, I guess. I don't know. I think nations are just arbitrary and they serve to divide us. So, there's better things to divide ourselves by, like class.
Got it. Number 2, is hate speech protected speech? And why don't you expand on that?
Right. So, is it protected? Well, under law currently, yes, and I think it should be. I mean, I don't particularly like the conversation about what's free speech or not free speech because all speech is free speech. That's why they call it free. I think the question we should be asking ourselves is what is effective speech? Because the purpose of free speech is not just to talk. It's to communicate ideas. If there's nobody there to listen, or if they're prevented from listening, then there's no actual speech. So, for example, yelling fire in a theater, you may be using your right to speak, but in doing so, you're causing an uproar, which will create chaos and make it impossible for the other people to speak. For example, the movie theater, the movie is being projected, and that's a form of free expression, a form of speech. But by causing an uproar, you're making it impossible to listen to other people speak. So by using your free speech in a way that is lying and in bad faith, you are reducing the amount of effective communication of ideas. So when I talk about a free speech, I'm more concerned about effective speech. So yelling fire is bad. Disrupting people or talking over people is bad. Bad faith arguments, those all inhibit the free spread of ideas. So when I talk about hate speech, usually I think of most hate speech as being in bad faith, but it's not necessarily the case. So hate speech, is it necessarily bad faith? No. So it's not necessarily ineffective speech as I would classify it. But I would understand an argument if somebody said that it actually reduces the amount of free speech in aggregate.
Okay. Number 3 has to do with guns. So I'm going to add a philosophical question to the gun thing. So number 3, do you favor gun control laws? And do guns kill people or do guns protect people?
I am pretty anti-gun, but I'm also very pro-sword. And let me explain what I mean. There's two reasons why you would want to have a weapon, or specifically a gun in this case, but any weapon. One is self-defense, and two, to fight against tyranny, right? So neither of these criteria necessarily have anything to do with how powerful your weapon can be. If you really want to fight against America and its system of tyranny, then you could make the argument that everybody needs nukes, because if everybody has nukes, the American state won't try to fuck with the people, right? But if you take that to its logical conclusion, well, the American state does fuck with people overseas in like Iran and like Afghanistan and shit like that. Like, would you want those people to get nukes so that they could protect themselves from American tyranny? I think not. So that argument is bullshit. So there's the other argument of personal protection. So as a gun owner, why would you need to protect yourself from someone at a long range unless that other person also had a gun and was trying to shoot you from long range? Unless one of you has a gun, there's no need to protect yourself with another gun. So in that sense, you would probably only want to protect yourself. The only case where you're protecting yourself is in close range, or else you can just run away. And if you're in close range, then why would you want a gun? So the only utility of a gun is to do things that aren't legal anyway, which is why I don't think there's a need to have our toys around so that they can just go around shooting people and committing suicide and just driving the death rate up unnecessarily.
Okay, question number 4 is pro-life, but you already said you're pro-death and pro-eugenics. So I'd love to get into Margaret Sanger. You want to get into eugenics? My first eugenicist, really.
That's exactly, actually, it was another question I was going to ask him, if he can expand a little bit on what he means by his eugenics stance. So,
well, sure. So basically, I think, let me see. There's two ways I could go about this. Okay, for the first angle is that being a parent is a crucial role. Society needs good parents. And of course, being a parent being a form of work and being one of the harder pieces of work that anybody could do should obviously be paid. But if we're going to pay somebody for doing work, they've got to be kind of good at their job, which is why I want to do universal screenings. So for prospective parents, I want them to do universal screening just to make sure that they're effective parents. And for prospective biological parents, so people who would be reproducing, I want to do a mandatory universal screening to make sure that their genes are free of, serious genetic flaws. And from there we can go on to like how specific do we want this? Do we want to restrict certain people who are just so terrible that they're just guaranteed? Like, we can debate that, but the argument that eugenics is always bad is completely ridiculous. You know why? We all support eugenics in some sense. We all support incest laws, right? Why don't we want people to commit incest? Well, because their children are likely to have genetic disabilities. So if we don't like incest, it's not just because we find it icky. It's because we, in some sense, support eugenics. So it's not about whether or not we do support eugenics. It's about how much we support it. So I'm just intellectualizing that and thinking more about that problem further than other people would. But, it's a very slippery slope to go down when it comes to like human rights and stuff, which is why there's the other side of the equation where I think giving people life when they didn't want it, that's also very immoral and goes against, the laws of consent. So I think it's immoral to have children in the first place, which is my anti-natalist side. So if you like mesh those two together, you can get sort of like, kind of, I mean, I haven't meshed those two together perfectly because, one of them.
So you think it's immoral to have children at all?
Yeah, I think it's generally immoral to have children. I think there should be a very high standard set for who can have children and who cannot. But, that can go into like human rights territory, which I'd be afraid to tread on, which is why I just want to start with universal genetic screening and stuff like that. And we can decide later how far we want to take it.
All right, Todd.
Okay, and the last regular question is, it's about amnesty. So what is your position on illegal slash undocumented workers. You probably don't feel that we should have borders or anything like that. So since it's a hot button topic, please just expand on your immigration stance, please.
Yeah, as a libertarian, I don't think the government should be able to control where I can or can't go. I think illegal immigrants are meh. I mean, they bring some good things and they also bring some bad things, but we can just make them legal and all the bad stuff would just disappear. So I don't know if immediate amnesty or open borders at the moment would necessarily be a good idea, whether or not it would, destabilize our country to a point, where we start to see negative effects. But I think that's a goal we should be striving for in the future.
I got you. So that concludes the 5. I just have a couple other ones because I'm trying to become more philosophical myself. So here's just one. Would you kill 10 people to save one person?
In a vacuum, yes.
Okay.
Wait, kill 10 people to save one person?
Would you kill 10 people to save one person? Correct. What if you're the one person?
Oh, me? Oh, I'm an evil cunt, so I would save myself. But
okay.
I mean,
so thank you.
It's generally
philosophical. I'm just asking the question. You can answer it however you want to answer it.
No, but I assumed it was backwards because I didn't listen fully. Yeah, I would kill one person to save 10 unless it was me. Yeah.
I'm asking you, would you kill 10 to save one?
No, I would not unless that one was me or somebody I really cared about because I'm an evil cunt.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
He just answered the question. If you're the one, yeah. Anyway, so and the last one. So, what harsh truths do you prefer to ignore?
I mean, I think it would be arrogant for me to say that I don't ignore any harsh truths, but I think some of the things that we have to ignore as humans are like that our pleasure and pain and our morality overall, it just means nothing. I don't think we are biologically capable of ignoring that, so I guess I'll stick with that for now.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I just wanted to throw a couple of philosophical questions in there. That concludes my round. I'm going to pass it back to Brittany. Maybe she has some more stuff. And thank you for coming on, my man.
Yeah. So okay. So, you said that you are. Oh, have you ever been on the right wing at all?
No. I mean, I've watched and enjoyed some of the older Steven Crowder and like Jordan Peterson stuff, but I never thought they were, their ideologies anywhere close to matched mine. Obviously, Steven Crowder by now is basically a fascist. So,
how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Part of my channel and the way it operates is that I think my identity is supremely unimportant because it's the ideas that matter.
Well, yeah, but I mean, well, you don't have to tell us your identity, but I'm just curious as to is just to just from my own knowledge. You don't have to tell me anything else. Oh, fine, you don't have to tell me, but I am very interested to know how old you are. I'm gonna guess, I don't know, probably like early 20s or something. That's what I would think. But all right, well, I guess that that's probably good then. So if there's anything that we didn't cover that you would like to cover, the floor is yours.
Let me see. Nope, I don't think there's anything.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on. And if anybody's interested in debating a nihilist on any of the topics you discuss, you can either comment on the video or you can email us at politicallyprovoked so we can set that up. And that's all. So good night, folks.